this is what we've been waiting for, is to get this opportunity to play for this state championship. And now we're here. But he's had a couple big runs this season for us. But it was a great job at the point of attack of our offensive line.
Franchini, play fake, looking, going deep. Tyson's open, pitch and catch, touchdown.
Right now, it's whatever it takes.
This is the Chuck Smith Show on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. Now, here's Coach Smith and your host, Nick Kosko.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live. I'm your host, Nick Kosko. With me, as always, is Mainland football head coach Chuck Smith. Coach, pleased to talk to you again here on this Tuesday night. You guys coming off a tough loss to St. Augustine Prep within the division, 21-3 on the road in Richland, driving you guys to 3-2. But plenty of time to bounce back and turning the page quickly to Friday night as you guys return home to the Corral and you welcome in a rival, Ocean City. So we'll start out with the game that just happened on Friday. Again, tough loss. There were opportunities, but it just seemed like it did not break your way on Friday night as compared to some of the other games so far this year.
Yeah, it seemed like early on, I thought our defense played a pretty good game overall. I mean, the Prep was on offense a lot in that game. And credit to their defense because they really did a good job shutting us down and creating a lot of turnovers on our offense. But early on, they scored, we answered, driving the field and kicked the field goal. And then just when the momentum seemed to come to our side a little bit, we kicked off and they had a great return that took the ball across the 50 to our side. And then, they took a 14-3 lead in at halftime. And we came out and really couldn't get anything going offensively. And they put another one in there. And then, that was it. It was a big defensive game. I think our defense played pretty well overall for being out there for so many snaps. But we have to do a much better job offensively as we progress through the season in order to keep our defense off the field and put ourselves in a better chance to win.
When you talk about your defensive performance, and I'll get to the offense in a second, it just seems like in that game, as you mentioned before, early on, you guys force a punt, force turnover on downs, and then you answer the Prep's opening, or at least their first touchdown with Nate Cashie's second field goal of the season. It's only 7-3, and then you mentioned the kickoff return, which was kind of a backbreaker. At that point with your defense, despite the fact that the Prep scored going into halftime, scored coming out of the halftime locker room, did you credit your defense a lot for the performance, as you just alluded to, especially playing a bunch of snaps and against a Prep offense that really loves to just be very similar to you guys and then really ground and pound the football?
Yeah, they do. They're very big up front, and they use that to their advantage, and big backs back there. And, even on the defensive side, their defensive line really took it to us. But our defense, I said that to them. I said I thought our defense really played a good game overall, our offense put them in a bad situation all night long that they had to keep coming out there and answering the bell. And there's only so many times you can be out there that long before something happens, that's against you, But I thought overall they played a pretty solid game.
On the offensive side of things, tough night, 4 interceptions, and then the rushing offense really didn't get going. I believe it only totaled about 46 yards on 20 carries along those lines. Not your typical offensive output from your running backs. Of course, no Rocco DiBiase did not play, and as you alluded to before, still day-to-day before Ocean City. When you look at what the offense struggled with on Friday night, I know the passing game's been part of your bread and butter this year due to the improvement John Franchini and obviously Jake Blum's breakout season. What was not working on Friday? Were there certain looks the Prep gave you guys that confused you? And what forced those turnovers in that game ultimately?
I think Prep just played a really good, solid game. We knew they were going to be a solid defensive team. I mean, all Coach Lance said his teams, even when he was at Hamilton, are very good, very sound defensively, very sound with the fundamentals of how to play. They were very, a cover 2 type team, and they play it textbook, and I think that combined, we didn't have the best night at quarterback, and that happens from time to time. We weren't able to help him out at all with a running game to kind of get it going. So we really were forced to throw the ball more than we usually do, and they were able to sit back in their coverage and really just pin their ears back up front and come at us, and it just didn't bode well for us.
Now, again, you brought a lot of guys back this season, and I know we've talked about this almost ad nauseum now through the first 5 games of the year. You have a good core group of guys back from last year's state championship team that did not remain. Again, adversity comes in many different forms, but you guys did not lose a game last year. 2 losses on the year to 2 very high-quality teams in Millville and St. Augustine Prep, 2 teams that very well could be competing for state titles in their respective playoff groups. Mm-hmm. How do you turn this thing around now. And I know you take a game, game to game, week to week, day to day, but now you have to turn around. Tough game on the road against the Prep, and now your rivalries are coming up, starting with Ocean City coming to your house on Friday.
Yeah, well, there's nothing better than to get right back on the horse again. Like I've said before, a lot of times the kids forget about it quicker than the coaches. And, by the time we get done the film session and all that stuff on Saturday, then it's like, we turn the page and go right to the next opponent, and nothing's better than to get ready for Ocean City. You don't need to do much in terms of getting your team ready when you're playing Ocean City. It's just one of those things at Mainland Ocean City is always, a gas can ready to explode. So it's easy to get the guys up, and we've had a very energetic week of practice this week. And even today was like probably one of our best practices of the year. And, it's just good to get back into the swing of things, touch upon some of the things we need to get better at, and look forward to Friday night.
Ahead of that best practice of the year, as you just mentioned, when you look at the film and get the guys back in for treatment, a quick lift, walk through on Saturday and Sunday, however your schedule, aligns going into the new game week, what was the morale of the team knowing that was a tough fought game on Friday, but you really just couldn't get anything going? Breaks didn't go your way as well. And you might have those once in a while. How did your players flip that switch so quickly? And I mean, I know you alluded to it before after the Millville loss, but how did they do that considering they have that rival coming up on Friday? Is it really that simple?
Yeah, I think the kids come in when we watch the film, and so, a lot of constructive criticism as we go through it, and things we can get a little bit better at. But we knew this schedule was going to be a grind. We weren't going to go through it unscathed, and it's just a matter of being able to survive it and bounce back, and there's no lulls in the schedule as you go through it. I mean, here we go. We're coming into Ocean City. They're 4-1, and then we follow that up with EH2, who's having their best season they've had in a long, long time. After that, we wind up hitting Winslow, who just, smacked Millville. And then we have last year's group state champion Delsey to finish it off, So there's no easy, whatever's on this. And I think the kids, realized the schedule we had, and we talked about at the beginning of the season, how challenging the schedule will be and how physically demanding it's going to be, because you're going against a lot of big boys, and there's not anything knocking on any other teams that we've ever played before, but sometimes, you can kind of kick back a little bit on an opponent or so. And it seems like everybody's having a good season that we're playing against this year. There's no really anybody down. I mean, even look at the beginning of the season, Atlantic City's having a great year. We scrimmaged Washington Township. They're 4-1. So we've prepared for this, but it's one thing when you're in it. When you're a 3 team playing this kind of schedule, it really affects when you take a couple of injuries, your depth, because you really don't have the depth. You might be okay at a couple of positions where you got to jockey people around.
Yeah,
it isn't always great either. Getting guys to play multiple positions, but it is what it is. And I think it's one of those things, as we get through it, it's going to make us better in the long run. We just have to get through it.
A new wrinkle to this game this year, and you guys have had your successes against Ocean City. I remember, I think it was, and also the other year, I think they gave you your 1 or 2 losses. We had a great season going to the sectional final, and all of a sudden, or state semifinal, and I think that they upset you. And what was that, week 2, I believe, a couple of years ago. So this game does mean a lot. But the new wrinkle is this year, you guys are now Group 3 compared to Group 4, where you won your state title last year. A lot of playoff implications in this one. And again, I know we're not looking too far ahead down the line, but right now, you guys are 4, Ocean City's 5. I got to imagine that's in the back of some people's heads, at least, knowing that there are a lot more implications on this game, not only for just getting you guys back on the winning side of things, a rivalry game, but now there are playoff implications where you could potentially see this team again in the playoff bracket in a few weeks from now.
Oh yeah, sure. It's one of those things, we haven't been in the same bracket for quite some time, a few years. And, you never know how it's going to all shake out at the end. I mean, you look at it, we just lost the game, but we lost to a powerhouse non-public team, and we're still right at the top with PowerPoints at 3-2, So you have no idea. I don't even really put much into that as it goes. But you're right. It is a big PowerPoint game. Both teams are probably going to win a few more games as the season ends it here. And you never know how the bracket falls, and you could see each other again. It's happened before to us a few times in the past with Ocean City, back in 95, and then again, I think 97 and 99 and 2000, and just a couple of years ago even. We beat them one week, and then the following week they came and upset us after we beat them pretty handily the week before. But it's just, and that's just one of those things where you just throw the records out when you play Ocean City. It doesn't matter who's at what. Even 2 seasons ago when they beat us by a point over at their place and we went on the sectional title, and I think maybe they won 3 or 4 games that season.
Yeah.
But that made their season, just like it would if we were on the flip side of it. So it's just a great rivalry. It really is. And it's fun, and everybody knows each other, and everybody has played ball with each other through the years. The kids growing up playing baseball or whatever, youth league football. I've known Kevin Smith since we were in high school because we both played together at Mainland. We have a great relationship. We're always cheering for each other, except for this week when we play each other again. He was one of the first people when I got the job at Mainland who reached out to me to congratulate and said, "Hey, let's get this rivalry going again." And he was one of the first people who reached out to me when we won the state championship last year. I remember getting on the bus and seeing a message from him congratulating us on winning it. So even though it's a bitter rival, there's still a lot of friendships there, and there's a lot of camaraderie, between all the coaches and all the different sports, as heated as this thing gets, believe me. And that's probably why, because everybody knows each other so well.
I can only imagine. Again, they're going to come right over the bridge, come into Linwood, and you guys do the same going into Ocean City. I'm curious now with your relationship with head coach Kevin Smith over at Ocean City. Again, they're 4-1 coming in, pretty hot. Again, their only loss of the season is to Atlantic City. So again, it seems like just everybody beats each other in this close-knit area here in Atlantic County. You know them back from your Mainland days, and is it similar to how like these college and NFL coaches are, where they have great relationships, but when it comes to the week of, they could talk every single week? Is this the one week where you're just like, I'm not gonna even text him, I won't even talk to him until Saturday?
Yeah. I mean, Kevin's a great guy. We communicate here and there. Not like we're weekly or anything like that, but once we get through battling each other, we support each other. When we get to the playoffs, I'm always reaching out to him and wishing him well and stuff like that. And he does the same thing. It's just it really is. It's a fun thing. It's been that way for a long time. Ever since I think I started coaching, I think it really started to heat up because there was a period of time where Mainland didn't play Ocean City for a very long time. And it's funny because a lot of people, old time people at Mainland, their parents went to Ocean City High School and they might have lived in Summers Point before Mainland was ever built. So it was like Summers Point kids went to Ocean City, and I think the kids from Linwood and Northfield went to Pleasantville at that time. And then when they made, the 3 towns finally came together. But it's fun. It really is. It's just neat because you have so many friends over there. And even in the off season when we play basketball, and I've known John Bruno just as long too. And, our kids grew up together in Summers Point and Summers Point schools, and just talking to him and being at basketball games and just chit chatting with him or emails and stuff like that. And we're always supporting each other, and it's just fun, and I think the kids, this is a game that the kids you live for. Like when I was in high school, it was Holy Spirit. You live for that game. That was like your Super Bowl game that you had, not to undermine or take anything away from any other game. But this is the one that everybody always remembers. And, this is, I know, like we told, I'm sure Kevin's telling his kids, this might be your only crack, seniors, to beat Mainland or beat Ocean City again, because you don't know if you're going to play them in the playoffs again. Yeah. This could be it, and you always want to go out with it on top. And we know when this game, whatever happens, this leads to all the trash talking come basketball season when there's dead ball timeouts and the chants start back and forth in the gym and all, and then both groups of kids are very good and very respectful with their chants and all, but it's fun. It's part of high school sports and what makes it so great.
Man, I can't even imagine if once it carries over to basketball, I'm sure it's going to carry over to the baseball diamond as well. Most competitive 3 sports between the 2 schools. I actually can't believe this. Ocean City and Mainland. I mean, maybe I'm not remembering correctly. There was a period of time, even recently, where you guys did not play each other, which is fascinating to me, considering your old Thanksgiving Day rival EHT, which now got moved because the elimination of that week. You're still playing them pretty much every year. You got them next week. How did that rivalry stay? But this one, which is a battle over the bridge, battle by the bridge, if at the exact term of it. But how did that one stop for a few years?
Well, I know, like when I was a kid, we only played them my senior year of high school, and then I think there was a period of time, like I know through the late '80s and early '90s, we didn't play them again. I think it wasn't until like 1994 that we started to play them again. And it's one of those things that once that rivalry really got going, I think the '90s really fueled it when they had Sinclair and Lipford and the Lefevers and all those guys. And we had our studs with John Stone and Dave Klemick and Jeff Boyd and Marcus Perry and all those other guys, Now I feel bad because I'm leaving a bunch of them out, but I think that really ignited the rivalry again. And ever since then, I think whenever the league schedules came out, just as like we always try to keep our Thanksgiving Day schedule, when we got to West Jersey, we said, hey, and Ocean City was the same. We always want to make sure we're playing Mainland, and Ocean City always said the same, and we said without Ocean City. So that's how we were able to keep it intact all these years, because there probably could have been some times since we've been in West Jersey that we wouldn't play each other, if it was up to the schedulers. But it was one of the things we always put in requests, like, hey, these are the 2 games we have to play every year.
Yeah, which is good. And again, this year, back to back after your gauntlet, got them back to back. So let's shift focus to Ocean City's present day team, which is 4-1. Again, lone loss, close one to Atlantic City, which, as you alluded to before, you guys beat at Battle of the Beach, and now they have ascended pretty much since then. They have a high-powered offense. Walker Bailey's playing really well. Clay Compton, one of their running backs, Colin Thompson on defense, also a pretty good kicker from what I'm reading so far. It seems like they're kind of like you, where they have a core group of guys that have carried over. And you mentioned over the past couple of years where they didn't excel record-wise, but they had a really good team playing a tough schedule. Now it seems like they are seeing the fruits of their labor. Is that how you kind of see this Ocean City team here in 2024?
Yeah, well, they have a good program. Kevin's been around a long time. Coach Matthews, their defensive coordinator, has been around. When you have that consistency on your staff, usually leads to the way your team plays, the consistency of the team and the schemes and things that you're running. And they do a good job of that, and their team is always in there. You can tell they're in the weight room. Coach Matthews runs their weight program, and he does a tremendous job with that. And he plays on defense with high energy. It's really neat to watch that from the other sideline. When I go to scout games or watch on film, you can see that. You can see his intensity when he's coaching on the field. Kevin's very similar to me, more laid back, more cerebral, where we take it in a little bit. Emotions don't always come out as much, but they have a great football program, and their team has been around a little bit. I know that their line returns a lot of veteran players, and they really put a lot of effort into the offseason in the weight room, and it shows on tape. And we didn't get the Bailey kid was hurt last year when we played against them, so we've seen a lot of him on tape this year, and he's doing a great job, not just throwing the football but running the football. And he's a big kid. It reminds me a lot of when I had Brent Caprio. And the offense we ran with him with a lot of quarterback runs. And, it was tough to bring him down because he was a big kid too. And the Bailey kid reminds me a lot of that and what they're doing on offense with him in that regard to take advantage of him. And, the running backs, for some reason, Ocean City just seems in recent years to have these smaller scat back kids that can cut on a dime and are just tough ball carriers. They had the Gunther kid last year for the past couple years, and now they have these other 2 kids that do a really good job, but they do a nice job up front. They keep the chains moving, and they do enough of just a little bit of everything very well that way on offense. And on defense, they're high energy. They're well coached. They do a good job up on the defensive front. They have good athletes in the back end of their defense, and they fly to the football. So and of course they have a kicker. It seems like Mainland always has a kicker, and Ocean City has a kicker. So it'll be a big battle. I think it's going to be a real hard-fought, close game, like it almost always is. There might be a year where they get us really good, or we got them really good, but overall, when you look at the history of this this rivalry, a lot of games are very close. Close score games. It doesn't matter what the record is. Somebody could come in there with 8-1 and somebody else at 2-6, and it's going to be a battle.
Yeah, last year you guys got the upper hand on them, but again, mentioned they were down a few players last year. Pretty much throughout the entire season, still managed to eke out a playoff spot last year. But again, it's all coming together for them right now. You mentioned the keys, especially on their offensive side of things, where what you guys would have to do defensively, maybe contain Walker Bailey. You have to watch out for their 2 running backs. Their line is obviously very well disciplined. When you mentioned their defense flying all around, and when you look at what your offense has to do you see more of a semblance of maybe we should go back to a more rush-oriented attack and not air it out as much? Or are we going to say, whatever the defense gives us, we're just going to attack it? Because are you that confident in both parts of your offense moving into this game?
I think, we're always trying to get better at every aspect of the offense, week in and week out, no matter what happened the week before. No 2 teams are the same. Like I think we understand, hey, we're not the same team we've been in the past. You know, and I think maybe a little bit we're trying to still find an offensive identity. But, you know, we just look at what defense is presenting to us, what we can try to take advantage of. I think that's what everybody does in their game planning, and then see how it pans out. You know, everything always looks great on paper, and then you get on the field and there's moving parts and so forth. And, you know, you never know how a player is going to play against another player or whatever, you know. But that, you know, it's going to be one of those things. I think we're just going to, what's going to happen during the game is going to evolve from the game. You know, because I know they're not going to come in doing the same stuff they've always done. We're not going to do the same stuff we've always done. That's the game part of it. That's the strategy part, trying to figure that stuff out and what you can get going that'll work for both of you.
As far as this rivalry is concerned, a couple more for you. Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. When you look back at the history of this rivalry now, whether it was a top memory, I might have asked you this last year, but now we have another year to look back on. Either as a coach or as a player, is there something that still sticks out to you, whether it's at Ocean City or at Mainland in the playoffs, regular season, that really sticks out in this rivalry that is maybe a favorite memory of yours? You know, what really sticks out when, like, first thing that comes to mind when you say, all right, got Ocean City this Friday, first thing you remember?
You know, I think when it really got going was back in '95, and we came in there. I think they were ranked third in South Jersey at the time or something like that, or third in the state. And we upset them. You know, when they had Kevin Sinclair, we beat them like 38-21 or something early in the season. Mm-hmm. And they were a very good football team. And, you know, we had a good team that year too. We won Group 3 that year. And we wound up having to play them again in the second round of the playoffs. We were going to the championship game against Woodrow Wilson at the time. And we had to go to Ocean City to play them again, and because they were the higher seed in the playoffs, and we upset them again. And I just remember that game. It was brutally cold. I remember they had a helicopter flying above the field with their Red Raider mascot pointing down at us and stuff. And we were able to pull the upset. And I think that really got the rivalry going, you know. And then the following year, they beat us in a 6-5 football game, and they won Group 4, and we won Group 3 that year. You talk about a bloodbath. That was a bloodbath, that game. And then, you know, you move up to 99 and we're undefeated, and they come in there with a couple losses and they upset us up at Rutgers for the Group 3 title, you know. You know, so there's a lot of different memories, good and bad, you know, that just come to light. I mean, there's so many that you can remember just over all the years, you know. Great performances by some of their players and our players in this game. But it's just one of those things that it's a lifetime memory. You know, you don't remember every game you played in high school.
Yeah.
You remember certain ones. And this is one that I guarantee you that kids on both sides of the ball always remember. You know, they'll talk about this stuff 20 years from now, you know, when they're sitting there with their buddies, you know, having a couple cold ones and reminiscing about stuff.
Ironically, you know, I didn't get too much playing time, but in my short varsity career at EHD, I remember Ocean City and Mainland for my senior year, which was a win and a loss, of course. So it's funny you mentioned that second game where you guys won Group 3, they won Group 4 that same exact year, but you guys lost Ocean City 6-5. I can only imagine what kind of bloodbath game, as you mentioned, just hard hitting, old school 90s football. That game as a Mainland guy probably still bothers you. You guys were champs at the end of the year, but you're like, 6-5 against Ocean City. Like, come on, man. Yeah,
I think we finished the season 9-2, and we lost 2 games by 1 point. You know, we lost the Holy Spirit that year also by a point. But it was just it was. If you love defense, that was a game to go watch. I mean, Sinclair, I think we held him to 100 yards, which was way below his average. Like Division I athletes, college football players on both sides of the ball, you know, like from big time schools to Division III. And I mean, I'm not kidding you. They probably had 7 or 8 kids that played college football, and we did too. And it showed out there, the talent level. I mean, it was just one of those games. And I just remember there were probably a few thousand people at the game, you know. It was just one of those things. And I remember just finding mouthpieces all over the place after that game. You know, it was crazy.
Man, I can only imagine. Well, maybe there's going to be a couple thousand people on Friday's game. Any plans in terms of alumni coming back, events leading up to the game? At this point, you don't only have to sell Ocean City Mainland, but, Coach, sell us anyway for Friday night at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, we got a homecoming. So it's a big night at the Corral. You know, we have homecoming. So we're going to have our homecoming court introduced, you know, and, the king and queen will be out at the homecoming dance. You know, it'll be a good time. You know, of course, the big video board that we have going. You know, we have a lot more content for that to keep the fans entertained. And, of course, You guys always plug in the live feed of the game, so the replays can be up there now also. So it's a cool element. And, it just like you said, whenever Mainland plays Ocean City, it's going to be a packed house, on both sides, and both fan bases are going to go crazy. And I know our corral crazies have a whiteout planned, and I'm sure the Ocean City fans have some kind of theme also, because they're not going to be outdone by us, so it'll be electric on Friday night.
I always found it interesting because Penn State does that whiteout as well, which is an insane college football atmosphere, but they still wear the home blue jerseys, and you guys still, I'm assuming, wear a little all green on Friday. So that's just the way it rolls. Coach, good luck on Friday. And for fans watching and listening, be sure to check out the game, 6 o'clock, Ocean City at Mainland, right here on Cape Atlantic Live. Find us on YouTube. We'll bring you live coverage of the game. One of the best rivalries in all of South Jersey. Thanks again, Coach. We'll see you Friday, and then we will talk again next week.
Sounds good, Nick. Thank you, and thanks to Matt.
Absolutely. It's the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service.